In 1999, the world was certain of one thing. America's stealth jets were invisible. They were phantoms, ghosts in the sky that no radar could see, no missile could touch. They were the pinnacle of military technology, a symbol of untouchable power. But on a single, dark night over Serbia, that myth of invisibility was shattered. An aircraft that shouldn't have been on any radar screen was suddenly ripped out of the sky. There was no warning, no epic dogfight, just a sudden violent explosion in the blackness. That night, the world learned a hard lesson. The aircraft was the legendary F-117 Nighthawk, America's most secret and prized weapon. It was a jet specifically designed to disappear, to slip through the most advanced air defenses on the planet without a trace. Pilots who flew it didn't just feel like they were in a cockpit. They felt like they were commanding a ghost. For years, the Nighthawk had proven its worth, flying deep into hostile territory during conflicts like the Gulf War, delivering its payload with surgical precision and returning home completely unscathed. Enemies often never even knew they were there until the bombs started falling. It seemed invincible. Until March 27th, 1999. To understand why the F-117 was so revolutionary, you have to look at its design. It looked nothing like a conventional jet. It was all sharp angles, flat panels, and a menacing black coating. There were no smooth, elegant curves. Every single surface was meticulously engineered for one purpose: to deflect incoming radar waves away from their source, scattering them like light hitting a diamond, rather than reflecting them back like a mirror. It was so committed to stealth that it didn't even carry its own radar system, which would have given away its position. It flew slower than most modern fighter jets, relying not on speed or agility, but on pure, unadulterated stealth. Its mission profile was chillingly simple: fly in undetected, open its bomb bay doors, drop its laser-guided bombs on a high-value target, and then vanish back into the night. It was the perfect assassin. So this raises the billion-dollar question. How did a supposedly obsolete Cold War-era missile system manage to bring down this marvel of modern engineering? On the ground in Serbia, the air defense forces were facing a technological giant with what seemed like Stone Age tools. They had no advanced stealth-detecting radars, no state-of-the-art missile systems. Their equipment consisted mainly of old Soviet-era systems, the kind of hardware that NATO planners had largely written off as ineffective against a modern air campaign. They were outmatched, outgunned, and out-teched. But one man, a commander named Colonel Zoltan Dani, saw the situation differently. He realized that trying to fight technology with inferior technology was a losing game. So he decided to fight technology with something far more powerful: the human mind. Instead of waiting for a magical new radar to appear, Danny and his crew studied their opponent with obsessive detail. They weren't looking for a technological weakness in the F-117 itself. They were looking for patterns. They studied flight paths, mission timings, and the predictable habits of the pilots and their mission planners. They knew that behind all the advanced tech, there were still humans making decisions. And humans, no matter how well-trained, can make mistakes and fall into routines. Colonel Danny operated on a fundamental principle: stealth jets weren't magic. They were still physical aircraft bound by the laws of physics and military doctrine. They had to follow carefully planned routes to avoid known threats. To save fuel and time, they often used similar entry and exit corridors. And most critically, to attack a target, they had to do something that momentarily compromised their stealth. They had to open their bomb bay doors. And Danny theorized that in that brief, vulnerable moment, the invisible jet might just cast a tiny, fleeting shadow on his old radar screens. That tiny window was all the opportunity he needed. His strategy was a brilliant exercise in electronic cat and mouse. He ordered his radar crews to keep their systems turned off for most of the time.
We execute with precision, no room for error.
This was counterintuitive, but it prevented NATO's anti-radiation missiles from locking onto their signal and destroying their batteries. They would only turn the radar on for very short bursts, just a few seconds at a time. It was a flick of the switch, a quick scan of the sky, and then back to silence. Too short for the enemy to pinpoint their location, but just long enough, perhaps, to get lucky. On the night of March 27th, the conditions were unintentionally perfect for Danny's trap. The weather was poor, which meant that the American electronic warfare aircraft, the EA-6B Prowlers, that typically escorted the stealth fighters to jam enemy radar, were grounded. The F-117, call sign Vega 31, was flying alone, stripped of its electronic bodyguard. As the Nighthawk approached its target near Belgrade, Colonel Danny's crew followed their painstaking routine. Radar on, scan, radar off. Nothing. On scan off, still nothing. The sky was empty. Then, for a split second, it happened. A faint, almost imperceptible blip appeared on the screen. It was weak, barely there, but it was a contact. At that very moment, the F-117's pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Dale Zelko, was preparing to release his bombs. The bomb bay doors swung open. The change in the aircraft's shape, even for a few seconds, was just enough to bounce a detectable signal back to Danny's antique radar. The fleeting shadow had appeared. Danny's voice cut through the tension in the command bunker. Lock! 2 large SA-3 missiles roared to life, launching into the dark, cloudy sky, chasing a target they were never supposed to see. The first missile screamed past the F-117, missing by mere feet. Close enough for Zelko to feel the shockwave buffet his aircraft. The second one did not miss. A massive explosion erupted, and a wave of shrapnel tore through the Nighthawk's wing and fuselage. Alarms blared across the cockpit. The stealth fighter, a machine that had been the stuff of nightmares for America's enemies, was mortally wounded. It lost all control, spiraling downwards, falling apart as it plummeted towards the Serbian countryside. The impossible had just happened. The invisible had been hit. Inside the chaotic, spinning cockpit was Lieutenant Colonel Dale Zelko. The force of the explosion had left him dazed, struggling to comprehend what was happening. His aircraft was upside down, in a death spiral. He had only seconds to react. With instinct taking over, he reached for the ejection handle and pulled. He was violently thrown out into the freezing night air. As he floated down under his parachute, watching the fiery remains of his prized jet fall away, he broke protocol. He knew enemy forces would be listening, but he grabbed his radio and made a mayday call, hoping against hope that a friendly ear was out there. His gamble paid off. After landing in a field, Zelko managed to hide for 8 grueling hours. With Serbian search parties scouring the area, sometimes passing just a few hundred yards from his hiding spot, finally, a US Air Force combat search and rescue team in a helicopter swooped in, pulling him to safety in a daring nighttime operation. He was alive. But the story doesn't end there. The wreckage of the F-117 was now scattered across a Serbian field, a treasure trove of classified technology. Pieces of its radar-absorbent skin and internal systems were collected, studied, and reportedly even shared with other nations. The closely guarded secrets of American stealth technology were now exposed to the world. A powerful and uncomfortable realization began to sink in within military circles. Stealth does not mean invincible. Years later, an incredible postscript was added to this story. Dale Zelko, the American pilot, and Zoltan Dani, the Serbian commander who shot him down, decided to meet. They sat down, shared stories, and found common ground. 2 men who were once mortal enemies, on opposite sides of a deadly conflict, shook hands and became friends. Their story became a powerful testament to reconciliation. The downing of Vega 31 was a moment that changed military history forever. It wasn't a victory of superior technology, it was the opposite. It was a victory of human ingenuity, patience, and intelligence over technological arrogance. It proved that a clever mind could outwit the most expensive weapon. And it served as a timeless reminder that in warfare and in life, no weapon is truly unbeatable. And no myth, no matter how powerful, lasts forever. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, please consider liking and subscribing for more.